discernment and courage to serve the community. Grant also that we may act compassionately and integrity in the best interest of this Shire. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I would like to show respect and acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land of elders past, present and future on which this meeting takes place. Thank you, councillors. Gallery. Welcome to our extraordinary council meeting. Thank you, councillors, for making time for this important part of the agenda. Please be reminded that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. Councillors, could you all please ensure that your microphones are on when speaking? Application for attending meeting by video link.
Yes, Mr Mayor, we've got two applications, one from Kylie Ravens and one from Greg Hill, who are both on video link now. They've requested that they address council using that means.
Can I move it, please? Move, Councillor McPhee, second Councillor Shields. All in favour? Against? Carried. Apologies or application for leave of absence by councillors.
Mr Mayor, I have one from Councillor Taylor Clout and also from Adam Williamson.
Move up. Move, Councillor Ryan, second Councillor Stoltz. All in favour? Against? Carried. Public participation. D 12.1 DA number 168/2023, section 8.2, review of hotel motel accommodation. Speaking for the recommendation is Kylie Ravens, representing herself, and Greg Hill, representing Kylie. And against the recommendation will be Elizabeth Griffiths, Bronwyn Andrews, from the Merriwell District Progress Association, Steve Gowan representing himself, Danielle Cronin representing the Merriwell Supermarket, TLTASIGA Merriwell, and Elders Rural Services Merriwell. Now, councillors, the code says only 3 speakers for and against. Oh, and Emery people, sorry, representing herself. The code being practice states that 3 speakers for, 3 against at 5 minutes per. It is an important agenda item. Councillors, are you happy if we extend it to the 5 speakers from Merriwell? Against the recommendation? Show of hands?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll allow 5 speakers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move straight on to Kylie, that's representing herself on Zoom. Kylie, you get 5 minutes. I'll let you know after 4. Thank you.
You're on mute.
We can't hear you, sorry. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Can we hear me now?
Not very good.
Not very well.
Can you get that sorted out?
Just give us 2 seconds. Playing that one last time. Try again, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Okay. I guess the only thing I really have to say is I don't quite understand why the proposal was ever declined in the first place. The property we're talking about is my land. In my proposal, in my initial proposal, it still allows for the use of my land for everybody else to still gain access. It's shown that things I don't have to show. I don't have to allow anyone use of my land. I don't have to allow B doubles to be able to pass through. I don't have to allow any turning circles. As I said, it is my land. However, my application still allows for complete access for every person there to be able to use it just off my bat. So there's just absolutely no reason for the determination to have gone the way that it went when I'm allowing people to still continue to use my land. The alternative could be that if I wanted to tomorrow, I could go and put up a fence, put up a gate, padlock it shut, and no one gets to use it and have any access whatsoever. So like I said, it just doesn't make any sense. It feels like all logic's gone out the window. I don't need my 5 minutes. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions for Kylie? No? Okay, Greg, we'll put you on the same 5 minutes. It's all yours.
Thank you very much. So I'm the architect for the development for Kylie. As Kylie's already reiterated, we submitted the DA and utilised the majority of her site, which clearly showed a driveway through the end of the laneway, which we used auto-turn to show how semi-trailers could still access the IGA and adjoining properties. The laneway is, I know there's been comment about B-doubles. The laneway is not a B-double route and shouldn't be used by B-doubles. Kylie is correct in that it is her land and she has the ability under the Act to fully fence it and stop access to that property. I've had 2 other developments in the last 18 months, one in Dubbo and one in Tamworth, where the same issue has occurred and the client in the end fenced the property. The one in Tamworth was access to one of the main car parks of the city, and council investigated it and were proven that they weren't able to change the fencing, and the fences were put up and erected and access was denied. So Kylie was very generous in allowing access to continue through her property as part of the development, and it's very disappointing that the council voted against it, particularly when council staff had assessed the development and recommended approval in its form as it was. We have that ability. We have rules and other entities in place. Kylie has the ability, if this gets rejected, to go to the Land and Environment Court. I'm sure she doesn't want to do that. I've given evidence at about 7 court cases, some with a similar nature to this, and in each case it was found in favour of the developer, and council were forced to pay all costs. So that needs to be kept in your memory as well. But extremely disappointed with the attitude of some of the locals, the way they've used that property, and now want to deny her proper use of her own land. So that's about all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Any questions, councillors? No, thank you very much. Okay, we'll call on against the recommendation Elizabeth Griffiths.
Look, thank you very much for accepting the 5 against and allowing us to speak here tonight. I want to talk about the social impacts that that one container can have on Merrill located in the wrong place. The 3.5 metre encroachment into the back laneway flies in the face of the Merrill community. I'm asking our elected representatives here tonight to do exactly what they did last time this was passed through council. I'm asking you to vote to ensure the laneway remains free and unencumbered so the council could complete its obligation to gazette it as a public access point to all businesses that back onto the lane. Please don't accept this with the 9 containers and later expect to be able to gazette a laneway that by then will have accommodation sitting on it. Once the container is there, gazetting the laneway becomes more difficult, and I believe Councillor Fraser alluded to this when this last passed through council. If 3.5 metres of the road is taken up with a container, we already know the remaining road is not wide enough for delivery trucks and vehicles to pass each other. In fact, even standard vehicles entering and exiting the IGA car park would not be able to pass each other. It would become a 1-lane thoroughfare. This, of course, assumes a fence is not erected across the entire laneway. There's been some talk that we may be able to take up land on the north side of the laneway. This is nothing but a second-rate solution with no guaranteed outcome, and certainly no guarantee that the implementation of such a solution would coincide with the loss of the laneway. In good faith, the council was given money and offered land in expectation of the laneway being gazetted. I know this was done prior to our existing councillors being on board, but that does not relinquish your responsibility to represent the community that elected you. The accommodation is pitched as family and tourism accommodation, even though each container, I think, is fitted with only a double bed. I don't think there's trundles in there, and I'm not sure how many family members you can get into a double bed. But I think it's much more likely that the current trend for visitors will continue, and that being high-vis workers. And I know this from personal experience and from contact with other accommodation owners in Merriwall. The problem is not the 9 containers, it's one, just one. It's not the development, it's the encroachment. These workers, these high-vis workers, bring with them utes that are larger than the standard sedan. They often have trailers. They bring small trucks, plant and equipment. The utes may at a pinch make it into the car parks next to the containers, but any accompanying small trucks, any trailers will need to be parked off-site, and this is likely, the most likely scenario is that overnight guests will utilise car parks along the laneway. I know businesses are already talking about putting up chains to avoid this. They want to lock out the potential for their car parks to become de facto truck parking bays. This leaves the free camping areas along the laneway. These are well utilised by tourists and bring much needed business to town. It's possible, therefore, that the free camp areas might be taken up by small trucks or utes, because it would certainly be easier to park in the paddock on-site rather than on-site next to those really tight car parks. If this happens, what we have is a ripple effect all the way down that laneway to other businesses. This is not just an issue with businesses at the top of the laneway. We have elderly residents who rely on access to that car park, which parking in the main street is difficult for them. I don't know what we do if the fence went up. Reversing into car parks that are poorly marked, where the lines are often almost non-existent, with trucks bearing down on them on the Golden Highway, is very difficult. And it would be easy to say, well, perhaps they shouldn't be driving. But a more compassionate person with the interests of the community at heart might say, how do we keep our elderly safe, on the road and self-sufficient? The answer is we give them unfettered access to a car park such as the one behind the IGA. We gazette the laneway as we should have in the first place. In our most recent meeting regarding the DA, 9 councillors voted to ensure that the protruding donga on the cabin on the laneway was not approved. Please, have the courage tonight to stand your ground. All this over one container. I'm not sure that I would be pursuing this if it was my DA. Thank you.
Does that say there, please? I just,
Sorry, questions.
you must have that down pat. You used up exactly the 5 minutes. Councillors, any questions?
I have a question. You don't know that they're going to have utes. I mean, a lot of what you've said is actually what you think may or may not happen, and I think, do you really know what kinds of people will be using these accommodations?
No, which means you also don't know it's family and tourists, right?
Because you've spoken a lot about who you think it is, but you actually don't know, correct?
No, we don't know. So we don't know it'll be tourists or families either, conversely.
No further questions? Thank you very much. Bromley, Andrews. Also against the recommendation.
Arranging a handout, I'll just get that. I thought that would be much better than trying to rely on technology. Thank you, councillors, staff and members of the public for allowing me to speak on this matter. The local road impacting this application, despite not being formally named, has been called a laneway, private property, an access route, and even recognised as a sole access way in a DA on a 20-year-old existing development. The fact is, this is a recognised road. It has been recognised as a road by the businesses that have used it for over 20 years. It has been recognised as a road by the community for over 20 years. It has been recognised as a road by the previous Marywall Shire Council who began the process of developing the road. It has been recognised as a road by the Upper Hunter Shire Council who continued the process of dedicating it as a public road, including with the collection of funds in agreement to finalise the process. It has been recognised as a road by Transport for New South Wales, as shown on the New South Wales Road Network Classification website, which is what I've handed out to you there. And you can see as the blue colour, which is the same as Bow Street, is a local road. Even the applicant, by inference, has recognised it as a road. Firstly, when they purchased the property and it was shown on their plans, then when they did not fence the road section so as not to block road access, and even now in their application by showing an access way of 6 metres in their plan in recognition of the historical use of the road. A public road is defined in the SEP Transport and Infrastructure 2021 as any road that is opened or dedicated as a public road, whether under the Roads Act 1993 or any other act or law. Money was exchanged in agreement with the council and all landholders involved at the time with the understanding that the road development would be completed. This would be considered a legally binding administrative agreement under contract law, would it not? Yes, there are a lot of questions to be answered regarding the lack of completion of this agreement by the council staff over the years. It is sensible then that the current councillors would want to investigate the status of the road before making an approval on this application. Not only is it sensible, according to the State Environmental Planning Policy Transport and Infrastructure 2021, that does apply to this application. The council cannot approve a development application over a road without first seeking concurrence from Transport for New South Wales. This has not been done to my knowledge. This forms the basis of the councillors to vote and send it back to council staff and the Environmental Community Services Committee for action before providing an approval. It's my understanding that council is now actively taking steps to finalise the acquisition of the section of the lot allocated to the existing road. It would be in the best interest of all parties to come to an agreement on terms for acquisition before the avenue of compulsory acquisition is required. It appears that the previous decision made by councillors, which tried to take into account the needs of all involved, was very generous and considerate. It may have been advisable for the applicant to appreciate that decision while further investigations were made into the dedication of the unnamed laneway as a public road as determined. Unfortunately, the applicant is correct though in stating that partial consent is not justified. In fact, no consent is at this stage justified until the appropriate concurrence from Roads and Traffic New South Wales is pursued. The MDPA has been supportive of the development of this site as long as it met planning guidelines and the existing road was retained. We are asking the council to uphold their original decision to investigate the questions that have been raised on the local road before considering the application. If this means that under regulations no approval is allowed, partial or otherwise, then that is for the council to take into consideration for tonight's determination. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions? Councillor McPhee?
Mr. Chair, can you clarify that, Mr. Pringle, about that point? Because I think you know more about that than anyone.
Through Mr. Mayorhouse, it's not a road, so it didn't have to be referred 100%.
I think if you refer to that map, you can see that it is designated as a road by Road New South Wales, and with right of passage and the time it's been designated as a road, it could be argued that very much so it is a road.
Further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stephen Gowan, representing himself. Think you know the rules, Steve?
Been up here a couple of times, Laura.
If you go exactly 5 minutes, I'll say you've been rehearsing on the way over.
We'll see how we go. Councillors, we're back in session today because the proponent is not satisfied with the decision that all 9 of you made on the 13th of May this year. It's clear that they don't respect the authority of council or your determination. They've not made any changes to the proposed development, but are asking you to remove conditions of that consent that were rightly and justifiably included. They still want to encroach into the unnamed laneway behind IGA, causing massive interruption to the normal flow of traffic and business activity along that roadway. The proponent obviously does not respect the local Merriwa community either, because of their blatant intention to block off part of the laneway despite the impediment to the local community and the massive objection to their proposed development. They've said that they would erect a fence across the laneway and that anyone using the laneway would be trespassing. But they willingly bought the property in July 2022 with full knowledge that there was an established roadway in that location. They formally acknowledged the existence of this laneway in offering to retain the narrow 6 metre wide opening through their land. For them to make plans to block off that roadway in whole or part is just blatant arrogance. Their only interest is in establishing a money-making business, regardless of the cost, to 3 local businesses and to the access and safety of the general public who have been using this local roadway for over 20 years. They just cannot be allowed to rain on the local community in this way. I'm also disappointed that council staff are recommending the approval of this development, despite the representations from the Merriwa community about the likely impact. In previous addresses to council's community meetings and to council, it's been made clear that the proposed development would adversely impact the trafficability of the public using the unnamed laneway. The report prepared by council staff for this meeting fails to consider the likely social and economic impact this proposed development would have on local businesses and the wider community. It also appears that council has failed to seek concurrence with Transport New South Wales for proposed development on a local road, which is a legal requirement. It is a road. We note that the unnamed laneway has the same classification by Transport New South Wales as Bow Street, which it adjoins. When this DA was exhibited for public comment back in December 2023, the Merriwa District Progress Association lodged a submission alerting council that the proponent owned part of the unnamed laneway and recommended to council that they negotiate with the proponent to subdivide the land and to donate the laneway portion to council to formalise it as a roadway. This matter appears to have been totally ignored, despite council being aware of the issue. There is no evidence that the matter was even discussed with the proponent during the 14 months it took council to assess the development application. Let's not forget that council failed to act upon the registration of this land as a dedicated roadway back in 2004. It collected financial contributions and carried out drainage works as part of the dedication. The laneway was fenced off and council has been maintaining the roadway ever since, including a reseal just this year. Private land can become a public road when the landowner dedicates it to public use and the public consistently use the land as a thoroughfare. For the record, council had the consent of all affected landowners when the road dedication process began. It's been suggested that IGA delivery trucks could use the laneway between IGA and the Merriwa Pharmacy. However, this is impossible because the laneway is only wide enough for cars and cannot be accessed from the southern side of Beddington Street. If IGA trucks cannot use the unnamed laneway, they would have to unload in Beddington Street, thereby blocking the Golden Highway for all traffic. I doubt Transport New South Wales would be very happy with that information. Although the proponent asserts that a semi-trailer can manoeuvre around the shipping container that would encroach the laneway, in practice trucks have been unable to perform that action. The laneway is also utilised by People's Transport to access their depot and to park their B-double truck off the road. They need to retain this access. That the laneway is not registered as a B-double route is because council has failed to register and name the laneway. In fact, council approved the construction of a workshop and depot for People's Transport parking their B-double trucks overnight, including the use of the entire laneway. Now, just to recap, the proponent has asked council to review your decision, councillors. Therefore, to be certain that the planned collection of shipping containers does not encroach on the unnamed roadway, I would ask councillors to reject council staff's recommendation and to move a motion to refuse the DA outright. I believe should this matter be appealed in the Land and Environment Court, it's my opinion that the court would be more compassionate towards the adverse impact this development would have on local businesses and the community in general, as opposed to a new business aiming to maximise profit at any cost to the community. In conclusion, I would like to refer you to page 2 of the agenda, which says that to maintain your ethical obligations, to undertake your civic duties in the best interests of the people of the Upper Hunter Shire community. We believe you fulfilled this obligation admirably on the 13th of May this year when you granted parcel approval. We now ask that you maintain that position to not approve any development that would encroach onto that laneway.
Thanks, Steve. You have to rehearse that a bit better. You just
We know the 5 minutes that time, but there's more practice.
Any questions, councillors? No? Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move down to Danielle. Representing Maryville Supermarkets and, I believe, Elders Rural Services.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors for your time this evening. My name is Danielle Cronin and I'm speaking on behalf of the Richards family, the owners of IGA Maryville, the only supermarket in town, and Elders Rural Services Maryville. I'm here this evening to restate our objection to DA 168/2023, which has returned to Council for reconsideration under Section 8.2 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. This review mechanism does not diminish the risks previously identified. The proposal before you again seeks to encroach on the laneway that provides critical access to essential businesses, including ours. The laneway is the only access point to the IGA car park and our delivery loading zone. The community relies heavily upon this car park to safely access both the supermarket, the pharmacy and other businesses, as you've heard already tonight. There is no practical alternative access route. Any reduction in laneway width will obstruct safe vehicle movement, compromise delivery access and force more vehicles into unsafe positions on or near the highway, increasing congestion and risk for motorists and pedestrians alike. Council itself recognised this risk in May 25 when it approved the DA subject to one less dwelling to prevent laneway encroachment. That decision protected the laneway and reaffirmed Council's intention to resume gazettal of the laneway as a public road, acknowledging its importance to Maryville's commercial precinct. Since that time, local businesses have acted in good faith. Elders, for example, has constructed a new storage shed, a significant capital investment made on the basis of continued laneway access. Reducing the laneway width now would undermine that investment and impede the safe and efficient movement of vehicles essential to its operations. For IGA though, the consequences are even more serious. Our supermarket depends on deliveries from large Metcash vehicles multiple times a week. These trucks will not be able to navigate the proposed 6.5 metre corridor, regardless of what the swept past simulations in the applicant submission suggest. If trucks cannot get through, stock cannot get in, and that threatens consistent food supply for our entire town. Councillors, this isn't a minor design variation. It's a decision that affects essential services, commercial viability and community safety. We are asking Council to remain consistent with its previous determination and vote for your option 2 on page 4 of tonight's agenda. Protect the safety and the viability of local businesses and refuse any development that encroach on the laneway. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councillors, questions? Councillor McGill.
Yes, is there a paper trail from 2004, receipts, correspondence from council suggesting that the road was going to happen? And if such, why was it allowed to go into silence and why have people not been protesting for 20 years?
There absolutely is a paper trail which has been furnished to council back at our prior to the May 2025 meeting. Why was it allowed to go in silence? I believe that what has happened is the laneway got gazetted up until the applicant's western boundary. Now, we've got copies of paperwork from the previous owner of the applicant's block, whose solicitor, prior to their own settlement in purchasing, had flagged the fact that council had intended to take a portion of this block, and that council had in fact actually conducted works on the block in lieu of the land itself. So the vendor that sold the applicant the land actually was well aware that they were going to have a portion, the back portion of that block, subdivided, and was made well aware of it prior to their settlement when they themselves purchased, and had waited for the relevant document, which was never forthcoming, from council to subdivide it. Obviously, it wasn't up to the owner at the time to be chasing council for that subdivision, and it was forgotten. The other businesses that were affected were under the impression that it had all gone through.
Any other?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director, are you aware there's any encumbrance on that title or any easement?
Through Mr. Mayor, no, we haven't found any easements on that title.
It's an interesting point that you make, that you hadn't found any easements, if I may continue with the conversation, Mr. Mayor, that if the previous owner solicitor...
Just a little difficult. The question was asked to Mr. Pringle, so he's answered it, so yeah, we better not get into the debate.
No, that's
Sorry.
fair enough.
Any more questions? Councillor Fraser?
Yes, there was, it was raised that there was a gazettal of the laneway up until the boundary of the proposed property, as question to you, Mr. Pringle. What do you know about that?
That's through Mr. Mayor, that's correct. There is a gazetted road up to the applicant's property's boundary.
Right, so if that's the case, what then occurred when it got to the applicant's boundary, and why was it not continued through that block? Is there any notes or history that can shed light on why it stopped at the boundary?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have got notes on file. It appears that there was a subdivision that was never registered to create that road at the back of this property.
Who was the proponent of that subdivision?
Council.
Ah. Thank you.
Okay, councillors, any more questions? Councillor Stubbs.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director. Can you please advise how close or where we're up to with the compulsory acquisition of that part of the laneway?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was a resolution at the, I think it was the May council meeting, from memory, in relation to that, and we're acting on that.
Thank you.
What's that mean? Hang on a second, what does that mean? We're acting on that. What's actually been done to as Regina said, visit or whatever we need to do? What is actually being done?
Through Mr. Mayor, what has been done is that we had all the evaluation of that land a few months ago, and we're still waiting for that evaluation to come in.
So that's it. That's it.
That's the first step, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any further questions? I might just ask one. I heard a comment earlier on that the applicants may block the road off. If that happened, your business, could it continue on in the short term, or?
Mr. Mayor, I honestly don't. There is no alternate for us, other than if we could get the councillors to come and unload the trucks through the front door of the shop.
Done.
Okay, any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, Anne-Marie Peebles, representing herself.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to speak. I'm here just to reiterate what we said in May, as there is this currently before council for reconsideration under section 8.2 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act of 1979. This matter is not new, as we know, and the document supplied by Councillor Stoltz in May in 2025 confirms that as early as 2004, Mayoral Shire Council initiated the process to dedicate the entire laneway as a public road. Landholders, including ourselves, contributed funds in reliance on this process. We personally paid $3,000 at that time, and in November of that year, council correspondence confirmed that all contributions had been received, with work scheduled to commence in March 2005. Since May 2025, council has continued to investigate the gazettal of the laneway as a public road, and we acknowledge and appreciate that effort. What perplexes us is the need to reconsider this application, given that council has already resolved to grant partial consent with the exclusion of one unit and to investigate the dedication of the laneway. The new submission presents no significant changes to warrant consideration. Our concerns remain serious. Adverse access and traffic impacts, restriction of safe access for community members to essential services, obstruction of access to our vital maintenance shed, negative impact on adjoining landholders, disruption to work already undertaken to progress the dedication of the laneway, the undermining of the cooperative efforts by 3 neighbouring businesses who have ensured accessibility and safety for all users. Limited notification of plans, leaving us unable to understand the potential impact on our business fully, which has significant funds invested in it over 24 years. On these grounds, we respectfully submit that council must refuse this DA unless what was agreed upon at the May council meeting is adhered to, namely no encroachment upon the laneway. For over 20 years, this laneway has been essential to our business and to the broader community. Its accessibility safeguards not only our success, but the success of others who rely on it daily. We ask council to uphold its prior commitments to protect this shared resource. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? No? I might just ask the same question. If the laneway was popped off, how's it going to affect your business?
It would make it incredibly difficult for us.
Thank you. Okay, no further questions, councillors? Move on. Disclosure of interest. Okay, councillor, over page 3, the D12.2, development application number 168/2023, section 8.2, review, hotel, motel accommodation. Got a recommendation in front of us. Alternative, Councillor Ryan. Or Councillor, the buttons going everywhere. Councillor McGill.
I sprang to my feet. I would move confirmation of determination of DA 168/2023 for granting partial development consent with the exclusion of Unit 1. I further that council immediately proceed to acquire such property as is necessary to meet the 2004 undertaking to Merriwell businesses to establish an access laneway from Bow Street to the rear of business properties on Bettington and Vernon Archer Street and Merriwell, and further that such laneway is to be officially gazetted and named Bow Lane. I would so move.
Thank you, councillor. We got that.
We did that to Robin.
Robin. Thank you. The councillors, while Robin's typing that up, we've got a mover that's happy with what Councillor McGill said. Councillor Ryan. Yep. You wish to speak. We're going to move and I'm going to second that. So Councillor McGill, you wish to speak again, or you?
I apologise to the applicant. Council apparently has let the whole community down in the process you were caught in the crossfire. But for us councillors, our priority on this occasion will be our community. And the community of Merriwell made it very clear that they need that laneway gazetted, fully accessible for both businesses and patrons of those businesses. At this stage, the unwillingness of the applicant to understand this position. My land is sounding something like the castle. It is your land, granted. It's also your community, our community. Let's work with the community. Get that road in place, as it should have been done some 20 years ago, and stop procrastinating. Thank you.
Any speakers against the recommendation, against the new recommendation? Against?
I just am concerned, and I know this is unpopular because this is all fueled by emotion, but what I'm seeing, and we've seen this so many times before, what I'm seeing is that the proponent is actually, the applicant is actually trying to work with feedback, has actually given access, and I just question whether this is the correct way of going forward, because I think what will happen is we'll end up in the Lands Court and it will be granted anyway, because on paper there is nothing wrong with this application. They've done everything in their power to keep that open, that gateway, and as they've said, they could fence it off, but they've done, in goodwill and good faith, they've tried to compromise, and I'm very concerned about the motion that's been put forward.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Councillor Ryan, is it secondly you wish to speak? Councillor McGill can only speak once and close the debate.
Okay, so sorry. I note that Councillor Fraser wants to speak as well. I'll be very short and sweet. I think this is one of those difficult circumstances where nearly everybody becomes a bush lawyer and tries to work out the pros and cons and so forth. But I think from my point of view, I've heard very little in the way of objection towards the proponents, the applicant's proposal for this DA, obviously with the exception of the issue around the lane. So well done for putting forward an application for business development in Marrible. So on that front I concur with Councillor McGill's comments. However, I don't think it's up for us to go word and verse through the various permutations of what may or may not happen in these circumstances, and I based my decision roundly on the basis of what is in the public interest, and I think that's basically what our role is. I note that Council recommended it, and I believe that recommendation from their perspective is correct, as it often is, and I think our job is to put another layer of consideration on that, and that's exactly what I'm doing in this circumstance, and I hope that this development does go ahead with the conditions and that you run a thriving business in Marrible. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, can I just get confirmation? Councillor Ryan speaking to conditions, but the motion as written there is to refuse it until I accept. Can I just get clarification?
No,
it's not.
That first sentence wrong, my fault.
Right.
The first sentence is actually the first sentence of the recommendation.
So just
So can you give us a clarification and I'll make the resolution?
So Councillor, it's really option 2.
Thanks for bringing that up, Mr.
You can refuse it, of course, Councillor, but you'll need to give reasons for refusal. I'll see you in the resolution.
That wasn't the intent.
No, I understand that now. Thank you.
Okay. While we're going, Councillor Fraser, you wish to speak?
Yes.
No doubt for the recommendation.
I'm for Councillor McGill's recommendation. I support everything Councillor McGill said, and I also support what Councillor Ryan said. I think it's enormously sensible what both of them have said. Part of our obligations as councillors is not only to rubber stamp the black letter approach to approvals. That's obviously the job of other parts of council, and they've done that job properly. But we as councillors have an obligation to look at the interests of the community, and that's also permitted by the legislation. So it is a reason for us to make a decision which is different to the decision that's made by council staff. We are quite within our rights, and indeed I think within our obligations as councillors to consider doing that. I know that is raised by the people who object to the development. However, my view is that it is important that businesses invest in Merriwall. In my view, it is important that there be a reasonable opportunity for this business to develop and thrive in Merriwall. And on that basis, my view is that the correct or that the preferred way forward is to confirm that to previous determination there will be 8 units that will be developed under that determination. But I think there's also an expectation, quite a legitimate one. I don't use that word in a legal sense as a legitimate expectation, but I say that there is an expectation, in my view, on the part of Merriwall that this roadway or this laneway will be gazetted. Council has made representations to them in the past, about 20 years ago, to take the money from the Merriwall community to make this laneway happen. I think we have an obligation to make this laneway happen. Now, on that basis, my view is we need to press forward with gazetting this laneway. The land will need to be resumed. That should have been done by council 20 years ago. It is an enormous mistake. It's an enormous mistake I withdraw that. It's a mistake on the part of council that wasn't done in a timely fashion at the time. It should have been done. The subdivision should have gone through and the laneway should have been pushed through and made formal. That wasn't done is regrettable. It puts us in the position that we're in today. However, it does raise some concerns on my part that apparently, and I only take this on what's been said by people who've addressed tonight, that the solicitors for the proponent for the purchaser of that block made them aware that council had an interest in putting a laneway through the end of that block. Now, it would seem to be, or if that is the case, there would seem to be advice that council did have an interest in resuming at least the end of that block and putting this laneway through. It can't be a complete surprise that this was going to happen. What I suggest is that the appropriate way forward to discharge our obligations to the Merriwall community, as well as to the hopeful increase in business in Merriwall, is that council adopt Councillor McGill's proposal, and I recommend it to council on that basis.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Any other speakers? Councillor Stotts, no doubt for the recommendation.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think from what the speakers have said tonight, and further reiterating what Councillor Fraser said, this is an issue that should have been dealt with a long time ago, and consciously we can't just remove that from memory, from history, and it's something that we have to deal with, and that was what was required at the time, and time has gotten away. So it is certainly unfortunate, but bearing in mind that's what was agreed to at the time. There is documented evidence. Hopefully we can resolve this with the 8 cabins and move forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Councillor Stotts. Councillor McGill, you wish to close debate?
Yes, look, again I reiterate to the applicant, you've been caught in the crossfire of something here that probably should not have happened in the way it has. Council does have an alternative, which is to refuse the development completely, and then you go forward, get the road, the laneway gazetted, and then you can come back for an application. Instead of that, we're offering you to get 88 of your units up and running, to get that working, and to work with the council and the community on dedicating that road. The fact that councils had got to a subdivision point, the fact that they've been gazetted up to your western boundary, clear intent is there. This was always the intention of council and the community to have dedicated as a road. In fact, it's most interesting to hear that the solicitor of the vendor who purchased the property made you aware, or made your solicitor aware, that this potentially was an issue. So I reiterate the strength of the motion. We will approve your 8 units, but please allow us to get on with the resumption process and gazetting that road in its totality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGill. So that's the end of the debate, councillors. So the recommendation's up in front of us. Everyone's had time to read it thoroughly. I think you have. All happy? Okay, I'm going to put the recommendation that's in front of you. Those in favour, Councillor Fraser, McGill, Ryan, Shields, Stoltz.
Just to clarify, Mr Mayor, is that the motion, the recommendation in front of us?
The motion, sorry.
Oh, motion, thank you.
Yeah. So, I'm in favour and against is Councillor McPhee. The motion as on the board is passed. Thank you very much for your attendance. And who would want to be a councillor? There have been present 550.